I know a lot of you saw the photograph of us with Representative Ilhan Omar, and I regret to disappoint you, but we did not record an episode with her. We merely had a productive closed-door conversation about the need to lower the top marginal income tax rates on podcasters, to enact innovation tax credits for Patreon donations, to lift the burdensome tariffs on Juul pods, to eliminate all libel laws, and to cut the regulatory red tape preventing doctors from conducting important life-saving surgery to transform content creators into kitty cats.
We will, we will not be sharing any further details.
The records have been destroyed.
Yes. Good luck with that FOIA. It's not going to happen, folks.
Well, so we're here. We are just returned from Philadelphia
Fluffy PA.
to cover yet another political convention. No, it wasn't CPAC. It was Netroots Nation. But
Yes.
before we get into Netroots Nation,
There was a mistake here because I thought this was Netscape Nation. And, for
fans of the original web browser.
devotees, yeah. Most people have moved on to Mozilla Firefox at this point, but there's still a hardcore of us.
Well, before we explain what Netroots Nation is and was, why don't we introduce our very special guest, making his triumphant return. It is our long-lost brother, Brendan James.
Hello.
The hound of fascism himself.
Sorry, I'm eating Burger King because we got back and then I only had a couple hours. I didn't consume any nutrients, and I want to be
And you still haven't.
I want to be on top form. But yeah, I'm kind of crammed. I'm having a Whopper.
We were having a good conversation about Burger King earlier.
Yeah, we
And,
didn't.
Matt brought this to my attention.
The taco?
Yeah, they have a taco now, which
Ooh,
I didn't
boy.
even see that.
It is. It looks harrowing.
What is
It
it?
just looks like diarrhea smeared on a cracker.
Bill
looks
Oakley
monstrous.
reviewed it and said it was awful.
Yeah.
Burger King has been coming. It seems like they've been coming out with a new stunt every 2 weeks that they put a huge marketing budget into, and it just sort of disappoints and pisses everyone off.
Yeah, they're really flailing.
Because they did the emotion box.
The emotion burgers, yes. The unhappy meal, the pissed meal. By the way, which one did you get, Brendan?
What do you mean?
Did you get the pissed meal? Did you get the don't give a fuck meal?
I just got the one burger. It wasn't a
Guys,
meal package.
Before we get too far afield, as long as we're talking about desperate marketing ploys that piss everyone off and don't really work, let's talk about Netroots Nation.
Boom.
Wow.
Already dropping fucking fire on these people. Just destroying them from fucking altitude.
So, Netroots Nation is an annual political conference that is sort of hosted by the Daily Kos.
It was originally called Yearly Kos,
Okay.
which was, bro, you're posting cringe. You're going to lose subscribers. You're going to lose any relevance. Bro, you're posting cringe.
I don't know if formally it was. Oh, I know it was called Yearly Coast, but I don't think it's. As I understand, it's not just a Daily Coast thing. At least not now.
No,
they're a sponsor, and
Yeah.
Marcos was there.
It's,
but
it's like an umbrella thing for a bunch of different liberal advocacy groups.
advocacy
People
groups
for the American
and
way.
originally
things like
blogs from the Wild West days with the
that.
shrub
Yes,
years.
and the blogging days that Will and I are so familiar with as we trod the message boards of all of those wild political blogs of that era.
Because when it seemed like the liberal blogs, they were going to do it. They were going to
The
save
blogo
the nation.
fascists.
Yeah.
That's amazing about, we have the new technology and people, and Twitter has obviously revolutionized the way people talk about politics and to each other. But at some sense, it's exactly the same because before Twitter, when it was blogs, there were people like David Brooks writing columns in the New York Times complaining about people being mean to them in blog comment sections. And they called it blogo fashion.
Matt, Virgil, and Brendan, you guys are there for pretty much the entire convention.
Yeah,
You
we took point on this.
Yeah, you took point on this. I only arrived for I only really experienced the last day, which was the candidate forum.
Yeah.
And we'll get
And
to
we
that.
had already peaked by then. We were going down a little bit. But we
Yeah.
got a second peak when you came.
Thank you.
we
I would say this is the second political convention I've been to in this season. And I would say my initial impression was this is, Netroots Nation was not nearly as scintillating as CPAC, which, let's be honest, was a carnival of horror. And this was just, a little bit more low energy, a little bit harder to wring content out of because, like I said, it would, just CPAC was just an absolute freak show. I was going into this, and I got to say, I was surprised at how not completely repulsed I was by everything in Netroots Nation.
Well, here's the thing about it. It's the weirdness of it is paradoxically, this seemed less coherent because the liberal bloggers have perfected the art of sounding like you're saying something, but actually not saying anything at all.
Yeah.
Just sort of like pleasing, anodyne, patronizing patter.
Right, which is why it's less repulsive viscerally than CPAC, because CPAC is people. We went into the fucking CPAC gallery, and it's the Alliance for fucking Carbon Dioxide, and like domestic uranium mining, just pitching. What if we just annihilate Earth and just turn it into just a blasted hellscape where we're all living in fucking bubbles?
And here you'll get something like the Defend Oxygen Coalition.
No, there was I saw one booth that was just like eat healthy.
Yeah.
They were just like the vegetable advocates.
Literally eat your vegetables.
Yeah, there was.
That was because CPAC is also another thing where it's just mask off. They have corporate sponsors. The main space area was sponsored by this outdoor company, and they had a huge display of all the stuff you could buy there, all like the tactical gewgaws and carabiners or whatever. And then there was also an insurance company that had commercials in between the speakers and in the main hall area. No corporate sponsors here. Here, all the corporate sponsors were laundered through the nonprofits who sponsored it. But yeah, the only thing you saw was like eat vegetables.
Well, yeah,
and
we're jumping into the sort of the actual on the ground.
So why don't you guys
booths?
why don't you three just take me through what I didn't get to experience in Netroots Nation and what I'll go to my grave kicking myself for missing out on.
Well, the first thing was that by the time you got there, the town hall bit where everyone had their little booth and tent and cards that they were giving out, that was basically dismantled. The healthy food people were still there, and I think the bling resistance bling thing was still there.
Bling.
Left wing bling.
Left wing bling.
Yeah.
That was still there.
Which was incoherent, the jewelry they had, because I almost got some, but then I realized this just would confuse people instead of showing where you are. Like one was it was a GOP elephant with a coat hanger, which I understand what that means, but you have to think about it because otherwise I just see a GOP elephant and think, oh, you're a Republican.
Right. But the implication was that it's back alley abortion will be caused by the GOP, and therefore that's why you're wearing the coat hanger around your neck with an elephant.
See,
but
I
you
thought
have
it
to
was
work
just-
backwards from that.
I thought it was just Republicans who really love Mommy Dearest.
Yeah. That could be.
Ooh.
Then there was the talking about kind of low energy, moribund, and sort of obsolete sense that you got while you were there was that booth with the term limits guy.
Yeah, one guy.
That was the
Just one guy in a suit sitting there and it just said term limits.
Yeah, like .org or whatever.
And it's like, ask me about term limits. And nobody
Changed
I
my
didn't see
mind.
anybody come up to him the whole time. And it just gave you that idea of just like no one knows what to do. They're just like throwing shit at a wall and seeing what's it's like, what about term limits? There was man. I don't know, you got a better idea. I actually saw we went to they had a bunch of happy hours one night, and you could dip in, and they were sponsored by different orgs and companies that are trying to sell like election related software and things like that. And one of them, it was some meet and greet, and it just said, "What's your idea?"
Oh yeah,
And that really did
Please.
feel like the slogan of Netroots Nation. It's like, anybody?
yeah.
What do you got?
Yeah, we're here now.
What disappoints me, what I hated about the term limits guy, is he's just a cowardly reformist. You want the real shit, you go to the militant real term limits.
What, like you get one day in office?
And then I'm trying to think. I mean, that was again sort of right off the bat. We caught the flavor of it because as we were walking through all those, there was a guy like reading from like kind of giving a talk, but there were like three people there. No one was paying attention, and I just overheard him going, And in Chapter 5, I explain how Rush Limbaugh was incredibly unfair to the president. And that year, it's just kind of like, that's 10 years ago, man. Like, if that's what the panel is.
You're just sitting there
And I'm not kidding.
swirling
That's
a
what-
brandy snifter and thinking about Oh, they kept talking about those 57 states.
Yeah.
Just to be complete, I'm just going to show Will the picture of the sad term limits man.
He is a very sad man.
Yeah.
He just had that hangdog expression
He
on
was the
his
Gil
face the whole
of
time.
Netroots.
He was very much.
He's got he's in a suit that like looks like a hotel concierge, but he's got both his hands in his pockets and like a downcast look on his face.
He wasn't even trying to like ring people in. He was
like,
just
oh,
standing
come
there.
on, I got some term limits to sell you. Let me tell you, oh my God, if you got these senators and they only got 6 years, oh buddy, let me tell you, that would be so much different. Come on, just stop for a second,
Fucking
please.
child.
My child, my
I'd love
daughter.
to see one, the Music Man type term limits pitchman, just
Yeah.
going from town to town with a song and dance.
Another interesting thing was like I remember this one booth, and I don't think we're like identifying any particular people because these weren't bad like evil mutants like at
No.
CPAC. But I remember one booth was the John Quincy Adams Society,
Yes.
and I think that was supposed to be about like having a more strategic foreign
I
policy.
think they're actually
Doesn't
like
really get the-
intervention.
Yeah, it's like that.
no, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah,
no,
yeah.
that's what I mean. But in that kind of, it doesn't really get the blood going. You know,
John Quincy
the
Adams doesn't get you
Society.
ready to run through a brick wall.
Yeah,
what the fuck?
and then the other thing we kept noticing is a lot of more groups than you think had names that sounded like right wing Coke places because it was a lot of like the free speech project.
There's a free
and-
speech TV
Yeah.
and like freedom for
which I'd
prosperity.
never heard of before. Freedom to Prosper,
Right.
was about student debt relief.
Yes,
And yeah, they're just like accepting
patriotic millionaires.
patriotic millionaires.
That really
Oh my
confused me.
God.
I honestly didn't know.
But I think
that.
it was Ryan Grimm who pointed out that these things aren't named for people;
Yeah.
they're named for donors.
Yeah.
So they're pitched to the rich people who might cut them checks.
Which we should mention to get into this netted route, you had to actually pay 175
Minimum. Yeah.
minimum, and we were there, of course, free as media. But so right off the bat, it's not really a grassroots.
I actually paid 175 for each of us.
Just out of
Oh,
solidarity.
Thank you. So.
But I just want to say,
well-
just to put a cap on the whole initial sense of lack of vigor and ideas.
moribund.
When we were walking in front of the convention center, and there was a guy handing out pamphlets for his presidential campaign.
Oh yeah.
So this guy was running as a Democrat. I
Yeah.
forget his name, and he had a glossily printed out thing with his priorities, and he was handing them out. You know, one of these cranks you love to see.
Sure.
But I took it because I want to know. Hey, crank, sign me up. I want to hear what crazy shit you're. Why are you running? You know. And he said, here's the 4 issues that we're dealing with in this country. 1, traitorous president in league with Russia. 2, climate change. 3, ever-widening inequality. And I was like, this is just boilerplate Democratic shit.
Yes.
Why are you standing in 90-degree heat handing out these pamphlets for your presidential campaign, and one of your bullet points isn't the NSA stole my penis? Why are you doing this? Like, even the cranks are out of ideas.
Yeah.
Well, here's my favorite thing. We passed this. So, a brief treat report. There were treats in the town hall area. There were fudgesicles.
Yeah, sponsored by, who was it?
A Raw Story, I think.
Yeah,
something like
Raw
that?
Story gave ice cream sandwiches out, which was nice.
I hope their treats
I got a
weren't raw.
fudgicle. They were delicious.
Treat Judgment Pro.
Yeah. No, I hadn't had a fudgicle in a while.
Coffee
I
wasn't
they
bad.
were.
So as we were enjoying our treats, we found this is like a dry erase board or whatever, and written on it is, what is the greatest thing you hope organizing can achieve? And everyone writes their answer, and stuff like this: ending climate change. That's good, yeah. Changing systems of infrastructure.
Okay.
Empowerment for new American majority.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Increase voter engagement.
Okay.
Create conscientious and empathetic systems and
Oh,
institutions.
God.
Create intersectional planet.
Create
And
intersectional
here's my
planet.
favorite one. And this one,
Intersectional Planet is my favorite 90s woke hip hop.
that's my favorite De La Soul song.
Yeah.
Here's my favorite one, and this was so important to the writer that they drew
a box around it.
a box around it, put
Just
stars
like the
around
names
it.
in the Jeffrey Epstein Black Book.
Bring the left and the right together.
Sure.
Sure, why not?
So those are the goals.
All the political tendencies come together and have a huge party.
But so yeah, it was so.
That's taking the pulse of the people. So just to take the pulse, the temperature test of the type of person who's going around enjoying the treats, like that's where they're at.
Meanwhile, at CPAC, they had the same thing what do you want to do? What do you want the movement to be? And it was just like, blood rain.
handprint.
Yeah, it was just
Just
it
people
was just
putting
like
Dawn of the Dead
it was
blood
eldritch
handprints.
symbols.
Yeah, yeah.
And just incantations,
It was like
It was
a total eclipse, but like in the center of the eclipse, it was just a hand reaching out.
Yeah.
yeah, open the crimson-eyed pyramid of Hastur.
Sutter Kane had a booth.
Yeah.
But yeah, so really unfocused, whereas I wasn't at CPAC with you guys, but I imagine it was a hive mind of just pure and unadulterated love for the great leader and MAGA as a project.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Well,
maybe some peripheral, like, theocratic, kind of irrelevant stuff.
like the Constitution Party, yeah.
But
They
this
were
was
kind
way
of
more
like the
diffuse.
first
What's
guy.
interesting about CPAC, and we got to see this firsthand, like you said, Matt, like this is all funded by oligarchs, all of it. But there is, an actual rift in that movement between like the old school, like CPAC and conservative libertarian types,
The guys
and
who ran Ron Paul back in the day.
yeah, and the young Nazis.
Yeah.
And you saw that in the reaction to the Israeli ambassador, for instance. And in Netroots Nation, like in the past, there had been like real conflicts, people like protesting, going up on stage, and stuff like that. Now it's like nobody just even has the energy to get mad at each other, even though there are like real rifts within this
the
coalition.
great orange menace that must be defeated at all costs.
Yeah.
Trump, both if you like him and hate him, his existence is just a dissolving conflict.
Yeah.
And creating two relatively undifferentiated sides.
We should also not forget that comic book page that we saw.
Oh, hell yeah.
Was kind of awesome. We don't have it with us, but the actual dialogue wasn't really that funny. It was like, a Marvel-looking kind of page of a comic book that was really just a flyer for some group.
This was the last thing Stan Lee did before
Election.
he died.
It was called Smart Election.
that was the elder abuse. It was making him do that.
It's called,
He died for truth.
it was called smartelection.us.
Yeah, and it starts with like
It's like GRU headquarters.
Yeah, and they're like, we will
Some
pick-
tracksuit guys are like, we have breached the voting. We have the voting database.
We have the voting apparatus.
Yeah, and then it cuts to Tehran,
Yeah.
and Tehran is also doing hacks.
Yeah, this kind of bearded bro dude, and then a lady who kind of looks like AOC are like, we have all of Florida's voting info.
Yeah.
And then they cut to this guy that says his name and it says computer genius / programmer, and he's like, my God, they don't even have to hack. They could just take this data from the internet.
Yeah.
And then then the bottom thing is like 5 guys in superhero outfits marching to fight off the cyber invaders.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, this is a perfect example. Like they've
Wait, I just
identified-
thought of something
oh,
really
sorry.
bad. Watchmen for Hillary. That's bad. I'm not saying that's good.
Ooh.
I'm trying to think. Would it be Watch Hillary Men or Hillary Watchmen?
We'll work it out when we found the organization. Later.
But it's a perfect example. Like they even had a little graph in the middle of it showing like voter anomalies in the Georgia Senate race. And this is a thing where, yeah, we know this is happening, but it's happening because of a Republican political project that is using our sclerotic political institutions to enshrine minority rule through legal means. And in Georgia, they literally they had a fucking warehouse full of unopened voting machines that never got sent to precincts. Meanwhile, people were waiting in line for hours and hours. There's no need to fucking hack anything. The solution to this is political. The only way you're going to beat this gerrymandering and this voter suppression is through political mobilization. But smartelection.us is proposing no. There's an app for that.
Yeah.
There is a technocratic solution to this issue because
time.
it's not coming from, it's not endemic and endogenous to our political system. It's an exterior cyber attack from foreign powers.
Yeah.
It just seems like Netroots Nation is basically like positioned pretty much in like the right in the middle of like trying to bridge the gap between like, progressive, politically engaged, or even like left-wing like activist groups and organizers, and pretty much standard Democratic Party politics.
Basically,
and Brendan, I think the point you made is that like a lot of like the reason it felt sort of like low energy is because like most of that like the highly motivated like online people who are into politics and want something better, all of that energy has just gone elsewhere, and it's gone to the campaign of the guy that Marcos Melitsas like hates, and like Sanders.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're a young person who's at Netroots Nation, you're just there to network. You're just there to get an internship with a consultant.
Just like at CPAC.
I mean, people who were there, and were I presume on some level, happy to be there and be doing their thing. Even they would say I kept hearing the phrase grass top or top instead of grass roots.
Top.
Yeah, well, but that's a phrase I heard multiple times, and I guess they're acknowledging, at least to each other, like, yeah, this isn't actually a groundswell.
Instead of astroturf, it's like field turf because
Right.
it's like you can you won't scrape your knee if you
it's
fall on
organic
it.
sod.
It's real grass, folks. But because if you say astroturf, that sounds bad.
Yeah.
But they're kind of openly acknowledging that part of it. But that means you're going to get something donor focused, like even the names of the organizations, technocratic, and not to put too fine a point on it, but that the star of the show, Canada-wise, is going to be someone like Liz Warren, who appeals to that professional middle class scene that is talking about plans and fixes and wonkery and algorithmic this or that, and it's not going to be the kind of if you want to call it old school political kind of hustling that's going on, say on the at a rally. At a Sanders rally, or when Bernie went to Philadelphia outside of the hospital that's being threatened.
We'll get to that bit.
Yeah.
No, because because Warren is like a tulpa created by the collective will of everyone at Netroots Nation. Because these are people who see themselves as progressives, right? But Netroots Nation was created by Daily Kos back when Kos was the left wing of the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. But then the left moved way past where Daily Kos was, and they didn't really move then. And so now they are anti-Sanders, hostile to socialism. Yeah. But they still consider themselves progressive. And so they would have, if there was no Warren in the race, that would be a real crisis that they would have to confront.
Right.
Are we going to turn our back on what we thought of as the left project, and then they would have to acknowledge to themselves, well, I'm actually not as left as I thought I was.
Well,
There's an extent
always
beyond there. But Warren comes in there, and she is this perfect gift that she allows them to grab onto someone who they can argue, actually, she's as left as Bernie is, and that means I'm as left as Bernie is.
Right.
Without having to shed their commitments to professional managerial class.
Keep this in mind about Daily Kos and his ilk. For someone who's a liberal and professes liberal values and wants to move the country to the left, they historically have not been for just left candidates. Their whole ambition is to elect Democrats. It's for the Democratic Party, and that means electing conservative Democrats in red areas. And their sob to the left is, we're going to elect better Democrats in deep blue districts. But in practice, it's more like going for people like Doug Jones or I don't know. Think of someone from 2008 and 2006, like the Rahm Emanuel type candidates.
Yeah.
And of course, he's probably Marcos himself is probably infuriated every time he checks his own website's poll that says they all want Sanders, which isn't the same audience as the Netroots people.
It's free to log on to Daily
Right?
Kos.
Yeah, exactly. That's the difference.
But that's their ambition, is just to elect Democrats.
Yeah,
and that's it. We just elect enough Democrats, and go get them, boys.
Yeah,
just like they are in the House of Representatives.
And that happened. That happened in 2009. We got all the Democrats. We got Democrats in Idaho with deep red districts, Democrat in Alaska, a Democrat in the White House, Democratic Senate, Democratic House. And a funny thing happened. It didn't solve the problems.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys tell me that's some of the scenes and the vendors?
I do have one other bit. So in between the big speeches and stuff, there were these workshop sessions, right? Maybe they call them
breakout
caucuses
sessions
or something. Breakout sessions. Yeah. And we skipped all of them because they were incredibly boring. They looked so bad.
Even at CPAC,
we did catch the last 1 minute of one. And that was, I believe it was called Podcasting for Change.
Yes.
How to start a podcast. And we just poked our head in. And, the room was pretty full, actually. Yeah. And we just caught the last slide of this PowerPoint.
Yes.
That just said, here's some advice for your podcasting. Remember, use social. Social media.
Do you remember it said marketing?
Yeah, marketing plus social media. And then it said consistency.
Yep.
And then it said quality.
Don't leave that out.
Do a good podcast that people like. It's the most important part.
I mean, we joke that there's a chalkboard and it says pod means pod. And cast means cast. Because it really was just oh, great. I make a good show.
Yeah.
That's your fucking slideshow for me.
Well, I was worried about it, honestly, because I looked in there and the room was packed. And the people there did not look like podcasters to me. They looked like they were about to go and start a podcast.
They weren't white dudes for one thing.
yeah, they were. They were in malevolent white dudes. Yeah,
You didn't see stink lines walking up.
yeah. They were going around with a cloud of dust like Pigpen. But then I got a little scared and I said, we should hire some guys to bust this up. This is not
Absolutely.
regular.
Yeah, crack
this is not
some heads.
allowed.
Union thugs.
Yeah, throw some stink bombs in there like they used to do.
Yeah, no, but I mean, good on Stav for hosting that panel.
Yes.
But no, there would have been nudity would have been on there too.
Always be slurring.
But that was, that wraps up like the daytime activities of the first day we were there.
just
but
wanna
as
Let's
you
talk
know-
about Netroots nights.
As you know,
dark,
as
yeah.
with every convention, the real action happens at night.
Oh yeah.
So it was
Matt and I took in a little comedy that evening.
Holy shit.
Okay,
Honestly, I felt-
you got to tell me. About
I felt
that.
like I was absorbing radiation into my bones. I felt like a Chernobyl firefighter.
We went
I couldn't
to
look at the comic. It was so embarrassing.
Laughing Liberally.
Oh, so there was an event held the first big night on Wednesday night. It was Laughing Liberally at a sports bar right next to the convention center, and it was one of those deals where if you had a lanyard, you could get in. They gave you a drink ticket, and there was a little spread of treats. And then
Middling treats. That's
middling
the treat
treat, they were
report.
okay. The wings were not bad. They had these little pork sandwiches that were actually pretty
There-
good. like
Matt
pork and
ate
rock-
the
pork
last-
and
For
rock-
little.
Matt ate the last wing.
I did,
And
and poor Virgil was waiting for them to bring another wing platter out, and it
I
never
was
came.
waiting by the treat table
Yeah.
for 1 hour.
Yep.
And this is behind a clutch of people. There's like people like moving past me and like jostling me, and it sucks. And then I'm hearing the like barely hearing this awful tepid stand up comedy, and like that's hell. That was hell to me.
You're like Fry's dog waiting
And
for some fucking
the thing is,
hot wings to come out.
The thing is, I dithered. I waited, and you just went for the wing because I thought, wait, does this violate?
right up.
If I eat their treat, does this violate my journalistic integrity?
this is Wing Bowl 2019 here.
So it was a bunch of comedians, none of whom I'd ever heard of, and
Comedian is generous.
I think it's, I don't know. I
Only
think-
one of them actually had the cadence of a professional
yeah,
comedian.
I mean, they might have just drafted people. I have no idea how they picked who would come up. And the other problem is that it was a big group of people. There were tables in the front where people were sitting, but most people were standing and mingling, so nobody was like quiet.
Nobody was quiet, and they also. I was told that these people were not paid. The
That would make
comedians.
sense.
Oh wow.
And honestly, they should have paid me. For
Well, I
what
think
had to listen to.
it's a volunteer organization. It's activism. That's like the DSA.
So
It was a
What did they do?
combination- So it was not all political humor. It was kind of a mixture of political humor and then, bog standard relationship stuff. One lady talked about farting on her husband or something like that.
yeah.
And, stuff about how Trump is a dang Cheeto, that kind of thing.
We blocked most of this out.
No,
but
I
mean, that's-
honestly, I kind of, for my own sanity, had to block them even remembering any of these punchlines. I was not even I was going to get a drink or something. I wasn't even next to Virgil. There would be a punchline, and I would physically wince. Like my body would contract and be, ugh. And
There's no
because there was no result. Nobody laughed.
No, nothing.
No laughs for any of it. And yeah, it's like part of it was hard to hear, but like it's not like the people at the tables were roaring with laughter. It was like
No, the people in the front were not. At one point, the MC, gets mad that there's everyone all around is just talking and ignoring this, and says, hey, these people here in the front row, they are listening patiently.
No, she said, the people in the front are being very quiet and respectful. Yes, that's exactly what you want out of a comedy audience.
Yeah.
Respectful, quiet, just endurance.
Yeah.
Hey, Brendan, you didn't go to Laughing Liberally?
No.
You were at Skankfest?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the real highlight, the thing that stood above this dunghill, is one of the comics was a Melania Trump impersonator.
Yeah.
And she was wearing a white dress, and she did a Slavic accent, and she was just talked about how her husband is a gross pervert who she doesn't like being around and all that.
She actually went blue with it. As an impersonator, I mean, she's passable, like fine.
I mean, no one has heard her talk, so how do you know what the fuck
Yeah,
she sounds like?
exactly. Yeah, just do a goofy Eastern European accent.
Just
you
sound like
get the gist of it.
Natasha from Bullwinkle.
But the jokes are just about sucking Trump's dick and how she doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And how she wants the Democrats to win so she can be free.
So she can suck someone else's dick?
She said something about
It's
how
not very progressive.
about how I remember this distinctly.
wasn't.
It cut through the miasma. Something about how when Trump was down on her, her pubes looked like Doritos because.
Oh God!
Which the idea of Trump going down on anyone absurd on
It
its
doesn't
face.
even work as a concept.
Yeah. But yeah, he did stuff
That's
about like
terrible.
how he lies a lot and he's crazy. But the real peste de resistance is that she ended the thing with
no.
with
dear.
with a rap. She rapped about voter outreach.
Yep.
She did a rap about the need for Democrats to come together to beat Trump.
No, spit some of those bars. Though.
All right. Well, it's hard to hear because everyone was talking. No one was laughing.
Yeah,
got a
about how
video-
good it was.
This video, we probably can't use it on the show because it's like, again, it's just everyone's talking. But I think if why don't you just put this to your ear and I think you can hear
Okay.
some of the lyrics.
Well, I remember the because part of it is a reference to gin and juice,
Yeah.
and that part I remember.
Rolling down the street.
Walking down the streets, signing voters, talking to the moderates.
Marching down the street, signing voters, talking to the moderates.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Talking to the
Walking down the
moderates.
street, registering voters, talking to the moderates.
Yeah,
Holy shit.
mercifully that ended.
oh.
And then the headliner, the Dean Obadega. Who is this guy?
Dean,
can't say
I
Dean
don't know how you
Obadega.
pronounce his last name, but I knew who this
Dean
guy was.
O'Bungler.
Yeah, Dean O'Bungler. I know who this guy is because he's had me blocked on Twitter for like 10 years. Because I think I just added him and said, "You suck. You're not funny." He's some guy who was like, I'm pretty sure he was like a consultant or something or marketer who just like, oh, I want a comedy career now. And then he was writing comedy columns, like Dave Barry humor columns for CNN.
Yeah.
So I assume he must like have like all these connections that he's using.
He has an XM show on the radio. And by the way, I'm looking up to see if I'm blocked. I'm not because I'm a good boy of online. And I'll just note that he still has the triple parentheses,
Yeah.
which is an absolute sign that you're dealing with a 1,000,000% herb,
Yeah.
an absolute dork if they've got the fucking triple parentheses.
He's got very strong Nanan vibes from him.
Yeah, no, what I really enjoyed was that he actually dusted off some George Bush jokes that,
Like repurpose them or just
no,
said,
no,
remember
he just
Bush?
said them. He said, remember
wasn't
Bush?
So good. Yeah.
And then he would do a Bush joke
Oh, no.
in order to be like, but he was still nothing compared to this guy. Am I right, folks?
Yeah.
It was a very clever way to pad the set.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounded awful.
No, I wanted to hide under the galaxy after that was over. Thank God for the alcohol.
So that was day one. And then day two, not to like, there wasn't a whole lot more going on in day two, but I would say that day two was the most high energy of the three. I just remember that there was more, traffic and people walking around. That's when we went on Sam Cedar's show because like most of the more, I would say, I guess, like relevant or some podcasts or things I knew were on the radio row.
And this is when Sam Cedar confused you with me.
Correct.
And they're like, we're talking with Will Menaker here, but you were only subbing in because Virgil was shitting out of his doo-doo ass.
I was, and I told them
Okay,
this.
Matt told me like Sam Cedar was like,
What
okay,
Matt told you was true.
Yeah, 10 minutes, guys, and Virgil was just like, go to the bathroom, and then you wait like 7 minutes, and then just scurry off.
Yeah.
and then he comes up, he's like, where's Virgil?
Yes.
I get no, hang on. I didn't like wait 7 minutes.
You did.
You did.
No, that's not
And
waiting.
you were drinking coffee and like smoking a cigarette,
Which is worse. You were more coffee meant bathroom
more
incoming.
shitting.
Okay, hang on. You're saying that like I'm twiddling my thumbs. That's wasted time. No, that's part of the process. That's stage one where I am controlling my internal muscles in order to get the machinery going. Then I went to the bathroom.
So Sam Cedar was just like, Matt Chrisman and Virgil, Texas, where are you?
He said I looked haggard or something when he thought I was you.
Oh, of
so
course.
that's a compliment to you.
Yeah.
because I looked like a shittier version of you to him. But and it was like right as Sam kind of did like a eye contact and gestured 5 minutes. As he did that and I clocked that, I see Virgil get up and just go to the bathroom. And I was like, no, but you. And then I said, so I jumped in for you. And I think we told their audience, the other host is shitting. So I'll be here for a second. But then you came back about, I don't know, halfway through.
Okay, I
You
don't
dropped
think,
some
I don't
knowledge.
think the audience needs to hear about
Well,
this.
we said it
No,
out
they
loud.
definitely do.
Yeah, it spiced up the show. It was good. But so yeah, then the second day, was a little bit more lively, I thought.
We did Sam Cedar's show, and then I think that's when we saw the podcast panel. And then we went up to, there's this like big, main stage.
Oh yeah, this was good.
Where I believe the first person we saw was someone giving a benediction.
Yeah.
Who was like total Marianne mindset.
Yeah.
And
No, instead of like some blood and thunder Protestant psycho that they would have at CPAC to bless the swords of the IDF or whatever, they had this sort of Earth Mother. They call her a bishop or something. I have no idea what church she was in, because she did not talk about Jesus or anything. She was just about how you need to be mindful in this moment.
Yeah.
And remember love. And it was incredibly Marianne.
Yeah.
Yes. You need to
Tune
drop
in, drop out.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
And there actually was something earlier in the day called the mindfulness moment that they had. It was like a half hour, and I didn't go to one, but I peeked in, and apparently it was sort of like a AA meeting. They were sitting in a circle, and I guess you just talk about like what you're feeling in that moment.
Yeah.
It is definitely a different vibe than CPAC.
How was that mindfulness moment? Like, what were you there?
We
for
didn't
a while?
go in.
We didn't go in because it
walked
looked
by.
like they were having an actual private conversation.
Yeah.
Well, it's it's for everyone.
Well, I don't
It's
want.
publicly
I'm a
listed
media
in it.
person. They might not like that.
No, I come in and I'm just like, I have my 1 year mindful coin. It's like,
And they had a thing.
Well,
called
and then I
yoga
said
with
I've got to
Reggie
shit
every
out my
morning.
doo-doo ass, and they were very mean about it, and I don't know why. And I explained the
But
process
they
to
had
them.
a thing called yoga with Reggie every morning. It was like a cliche. It was
Yeah.
like if you were going to pretend like what would be the liberal CPAC. Oh yeah, the fucking yoga. And
Yeah,
mindful-
yeah.
It was.
Lattes.
It literally was. Yeah.
So we saw a bit of the Marianne mindset orb energy, and then the first speaker was that billionaire or millionaire guy.
We saw a couple of speakers, and then we got bored and left. One was a woman from Planned Parenthood, and she sounded very good and on the ball. Another was
housing, I think.
housing.
One PA.
Right.
Shout out one
But
PA.
the real highlight was this anti-poverty billionaire whose name I can't remember for the life
I've
of
never
me.
heard of him before.
But he was the absolute worst speaker. Just a complete dog shit of everyone that we saw there.
He actually looked like he should have. Like he looked like a lesser Falwell brother. Like he had that kind of goatee.
Yeah.
big head look to him.
It was very like, you're in like the D league of mega church ripoff pastors.
Yeah, but he's apparently some millionaire who's made it his anti-poverty his mission. Which LOL about that, obviously.
Yeah.
And at the end, he's doing the spiel about how, and this is perfectly emblematic of the whole.
Oh,
guy.
absolutely.
He does a spiel, very passionate, and it was always very passionate. And the reason that it wasn't totally horrible the way CPAC was is that when people were describing the fucked up problems we got, it was always very it's like rousing. It's like, we have a crisis, we have monstrous inequality and poverty, and then he goes, you can take out your phones, and if we can get what was it, end poverty?
Yes,
like-
everybody take out your phones right now and go on Twitter and type in #end poverty.
Yeah.
And if we can get this trending right now.
Yeah.
And
It's
then-
one of the most embarrassing. And then
Oh,
30
God.
seconds later, he tells everyone, get up on your feet and chant with me. And I've got a video of it, and I think this audio is good.
This was excruciating to actually be there
and this
for.
is within 30 seconds of doing another gimmick that fucking failed and made everyone confused and aggravated. By the way, here's what he looks like, Will, if you want to describe that to the audience.
yeah, he looks like a youth pastor that would skateboard or something like that.
Yeah.
Here's the 30 seconds of hate.
Poverty, end poverty, end poverty. Louder! Say it for the people who are living paycheck to paycheck. Think about the people who don't have health care who are counting at you. End poverty.
Oh no! Oh no!
really bad.
Oh no!
Yeah.
They are posting cringe to the timeline.
You said that like out loud at the thing. I love how we're on tape laughing maniacally at the guy going, I don't think poverty's good.
Definitely not looking like out of touch podcast millionaires
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that moment,
yeah.
cackling at this poor guy who just wants
Yeah.
us to stop about.
Well, he's not poor. He's a
Exactly.
Well,
He's rich.
no, I mean this poor schmuck whose entire conception of how you end poverty was just ask. One of his solutions was we lower prices.
Yeah.
That is liberal bullshit. That's all that is.
Money can be used to buy goods and services. Yeah, so he rocked, and then we kind of, again, this was a thing, as you said, that I felt throughout and going into the third day as well is that there would just be stretches where, as Matt said, a talk or a speaker wasn't necessarily bad or saying anything. I mean, there was some stuff that was lib, dumb stuff, but sometimes there'd be quite good stuff, but it was just boring because you're like, yeah, I know this, and this isn't going to change anything. This like isn't a historical summit of some grand left coalition. It's a bunch of professionals who are just here to network and like
bloggers and comments.
It really
yeah,
boils
you just
down-
wanted to tune
Every
out.
talk kind of boiled down to someone should do something about all the problems.
It was
Yeah.
very
Because the moment it got to a prescriptive phase, it just disappeared into thin air.
It's anesthetizing. That's what it is, and that's why I loved. That was my favorite speaker, by the way. That Ed Poffert.
Yeah, he was great.
Because I mean, at least that had the crazy energy of CPAC.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of just
like Dory Gold showing the Infinity gems.
Yeah, like okay, this is nuts. I'm with that. If the whole thing had been that, it would be entertaining and great.
Yeah, and I think that's what we thought might be the best version of it is a lot of like parodies
Yeah.
of a lib thing, but it was a little more tepid than that.
After that, happy hours.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
we
baby.
ran through every single happy hour, of which there were I think 7.
Yeah.
and we got a drink at each one with our free drink tickets. And
We
got
didn't
pretty-
always get free drink tickets, and people kept walking around asking where do you get the drink tickets, and I don't know, but the drinks were expensive, so I mean,
Yeah.
it was ludicrously priced.
and we got loaded, and then we went to
Went loaded, and so
Quiz.
brief party rundown here. We went to the one that Matt alluded to earlier. It's some campaign software,
Yeah.
which is baffling.
there were
'cause,
2 of those, I think.
and they asked us to sign up with our email addresses for
Yep.
a.
They will be sending an email to Bert Cum.
No, Virgil gave them my email, and I gave them his email, so they actually did end up getting both of our emails.
But it's like nobody there is a political candidate, so why are you even doing this event?
I guess like they might get hired for a campaign and then they can play, hey, I got this thing for this software that we should use for the election. That
Yeah,
kind
it
of
was grim.
I signed us up for a 6-month trial subscription for that software. I don't know. I mean, I felt bad because I drank a drink there, and
That's
felt
how they get you,
Felt
yeah.
obligated.
You sign up for the company that crafts the it does like wonk and congressional mods for Doom 2 levels.
We went to the Demos one, which they started talking, so we hightailed it.
Yeah,
out
no,
of there.
thank you.
There was another one that seemed religious in some way, and then just no.
I didn't notice that.
And then, but the one party that absolutely whipped was the Move On happy hour. Or no, I'm sorry, not Move On. Act Blue. The Act Blue happy hour.
Yep.
Where I don't even know if this story is interesting enough to tell, but you're waiting in line to get a drink, and the guy in front of me was just like some like young a bro, if you will, talking to another bro guy, saying, "Yeah, I'm expanding my team this year." That kind of shit. And and he asks for a drink. He just points at the drink, what he wants, and he points at his lanyard and says, "Yeah, Act Blue. Yeah, told we have a tab. We get the drinks for free." And the woman's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And she asks the other person, who says, "No, you got to pay for it." As she's pouring the drink, and the guy says, "Nah," and just walks away.
We paid $175 at that point, so.
Well, he was there because he worked for
He's a
Act Blue.
vendor, yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, it sucked. And then we did very poorly in quiz.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now here is where I enter into this story because at exactly the same time on Friday evening, Catherine and I were getting a train to Philadelphia, and I'm standing there in front of the big board at probably the most cursed location in all of Manhattan, Penn Station, just a fucking rat hole, awful shit, and my phone rings, and it's one Virgil Texas calling me. And I go, "Hello?" And he goes, Will, where are you? Where are you right now?" And I go, "I'm in Penn Station." And Virgil says, "The New York Penn Station or the Pennsylvania Penn Station?" And I go, "No, the only fucking Penn Station. I'm in New York. We're getting on a
You
train."
could have meant you're in the Pennsylvania train station.
Trying to be economical on the phone.
I go,
Yo, dude, I'm in Penn.
I'm up in Penn, yo.
so yeah. Catherine and I were waiting to get on the train on the Excella Express with all the other media figures going to DC or whatever.
All the
And I'm
stars
like,
are out to shine.
Yeah, and I was like, no, dude, like we're getting on the train now. Like we'll be in Philadelphia in like an hour or so. And I was like, well, like what's the matter? Or like is everything okay? And he just goes, "Oh, we're about to do this trivia, and we really could use your help."
Here's what was uniquely aggravating about the trivia, and everything has to be aggravating, which is a great, it's a great metaphor for just how, or a great symbol for just how fucked up liberalism is that there were these elaborate rules for the trivia, and one was, teams must be 8 to 10 people.
That's okay. First of all, that's ludicrous. You know, I have a long-standing beef against pub quizzes where you're allowed to have more than like 4 or 5 people on a team.
You had to have.
You had to have fucking 8 people.
Yeah.
You had to have 8 people, which okay, fine, whatever. That's your trivia, but I just went up and said, we're kind of a thing, so we'll just be playing the 3 of us. Like, yeah, that's fine. And then they had like runners, so I guess were volunteers or working for the Netroots or whatever. Like passing out sheets, and they kept coming up to us and be like, "Hey, where's the rest of your team?" And we're like, "No, we cleared it. It's cool. We're a team of 3 people." And,
Well, because the idea was, if you don't have that many people, you can make friends by being on a team together.
Not interested.
No.
Because it is a
I already
networking
have
event.
friends.
It's a networking event. And it's a perfect networking.
You're such assholes.
Yeah, this sounds pretty
These
mean.
poor people.
No.
You weren't there,
Here's
man.
the thing: it disadvantages you if you are a team of 3. And we said we accept the disadvantage, so fuck off.
Yeah, it was like, what's the problem? And they kept coming back.
They come right back, and one of them had
Then
to
we-
go up and went up to the stage with
Yeah.
the people running the trivia and like ran it by them.
Yeah. So then we lied and we said that you were coming in like 5
Yeah,
minutes.
we
with
lied. We
Catherine.
said, no. Our for 6 friends will be here any minute now.
Virgil pulled the classic, Escape from Alcatraz style ruse by putting his suit coat on a different chair.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So then we were a team of 4, and then guys we did not want to interact with kept coming up to us, being like, "Hey, do you have a full team?" We said yes.
Well, I remember with the coat thing, I remember I sat down and you were like, huh? And I was like, what? I look over and the coat is on the chair, and I was like, that is brilliant. And
Yeah.
And then 4, so we were up to 4, but then like the heat was just on us so hard, and Will and Kath weren't coming. Just some old man walks by and asks if he can join our team. We just said, yeah, okay.
it was the worst of both worlds because we didn't stick to our guns and not let anyone else in, but we also didn't end up having a full 8 people where we could actually use their brain power. So it was just us 3 and an old man who we didn't know, and then his daughter came, and they were decent teammates, but it was like a complete compromise. that no one wanted.
They were helpful. They were better than us.
They were helpful.
They were better
Yeah.
than
How
us.
about you?
We
sucked.
really miffed it, but the
were
category, the first round was on incredibly stupid
Trivia about the candidate.
about the
current
candidates that we didn't know anything. I mean, we really were guessing. The second one was about
was
some
rough.
Philly stuff. We did well in the second round actually, and then I don't even remember what the third one.
It was more Philly facts.
It's
Yeah.
Philly. 2
But we
Philly
were getting
rounds.
crushed so bad we
We
left
prepped
before
at
they
lunch
even
as well. We
answered,
read
uh,
the Wikipedia.
We read Wikipedia. We
Philadelphia.
We skimmed Wikipedia.
Yeah.
The whole website.
So we bombed in
we
was
really
humiliating.
bombed, and we lost to the Wonk team and the Daily Coast.
That
team.
one
It was pretty brutal. I have to admit. Even accepting the disadvantage. But I do want to point this out. If you have a team of 10 people and most of them are strangers, how are you going to collaborate on trivia?
Right,
on,
because
where
how,
you're all drinking.
How do you resolve conflicting answers? Like, are you going to create an ad hoc democratic model in the 5 minutes you have?
It was
between rounds?
prefigurative politics.
You know what you do is you build responsive institutions.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was bad. But then it was day 3, and you guys actually got here.
Oh, and then we showed up.
Yeah.
The reinforcements arrived.
Yeah.
So like
The party could begin.
to replenish your ranks.
Yeah.
So
The late Will Menaker.
yeah, the late Walter Menaker. So Saturday. That was the only day that I got to experience the state
The
of
magic.
the state of the Netroots Nation.
Chris came up on Saturday.
Yeah. Again, like I've said this before, but like struck by like this almost like perfect half and half between activists and organizing groups who are very committed to very good and decent causes. One of the first things I saw in the convention center was like I think it was We the People Pennsylvania just did this like completely ad hoc like pop up Narcan training
Right.
for like harm reduction in like the opioid crisis, which is a big deal and a huge problem in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania and much of the rest of the country. So I was like very encouraged by that.
Yeah.
And it was like it seemed like I saw some of the vendors like by then they were mostly packing up, but and then we chose like a panel, and it was like progressive foreign policy, and I was like, oh, let's go to that one. That's sure to be horrible.
Yeah.
that actually turned out to be quite good.
Yeah.
And in fact, the keynote speaker there was Representative Ilhan Omar. And it was actually like, I was impressed like at how not bullshit her and like all the other speakers were, in that like they, I forget who some of the other ones were, but like they made clear that like all these bad things that we don't like guess what? Like Obama was doing them too.
Yeah.
And that like the problem is like not just the Republicans, but like the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
It did suffer though from the same thing that even the best stuff there suffered from, which is it's very incisive and it gets you going when they're doing the descriptive portion, but then as soon as it comes to the question of, well, what do we do now? Everything just kind of dissolves.
Yeah.
Like the energy is diffused and it just people
Well,
just
especially
sort
with
of-
those, there was some people from the ACLU or I think that was one of the panelists, and especially with they were saying out loud like, yeah, we always sue and it never works. Like they just were like, yeah, it doesn't actually do anything.
Well, I
And
was actually like impressed at like several willing to say like, you know,
I'm not saying that like shame on them.
like
for,
laws are like not enough.
Yeah.
You can't just rely on like the courts
The thing-
or like the
yeah.
law to protect
That was
or
good.
like make a more decent society.
Sure.
Like you need like, you know, mobilization.
Well, that's
like,
the thing is that the mass mobilization is the unspoken thing that is in the thing in the equation that is we're all waiting for to change the math of this power dynamic right now in America. If it's not there, and you know, I think I could argue that the Sanders campaign is the germ of maybe one, but Netroots, for whatever number of reasons, is not going to commit to saying, yeah, there's a model here. Instead, you know, it's still siloed within all of these individual groups and some more grassroots than others, some institutional, all of which really deeply tied to the Democratic Party, regardless of what their members and the people there might believe.
Yeah.
And as such, unable to get on board with that, which leaves them really just kind of shrugging.
Yeah.
Because
And
they
keep in mind,
they
there's-
can't gesture to the one thing that might make the math change.
And
right?
keep in
Change
mind,
the
there were
equation.
people there who agree with that analysis and vaguely recognize that. It's just that this is the structure they find themselves in. This is the milieu.
Yeah.
And as well, I mean, you have a guy like Marcos, he's a multi-millionaire media magnate. He fucking was a founder of Vox Media and sold his shares. And he's deeply embedded within the institution of the Democratic Party. That's part of why he utterly loathes Bernie Sanders.
Power manlet also.
I mean, like, you know, so I was impressed with the foreign policy panel. However, like, okay, like, so the interesting thing happened to occur during the question and answer portion, which is always, this is
the
death.
real shit.
Yeah, this is always death. So you know, they line up. And you know, the moderator go, you know, like, you know, please, you know, say who you are and if you're with an organization, and like, you know, again, just please make sure to ask a question.
Yep.
And the first guy up there was this, like, you know, another old white man in a room that has, you know, passed him
boy.
by, and they said, like, you know, now just make sure, ask a question.
Yep.
And he begins. When I was growing up, as a child of the diplomatic corps in the 1950s and 60s, and it was just like from there, I was like, oh,
No, you can hear everyone in the room just sort of like, oh.
I leaned over to Matt and I said, that guy is 100% going to be a crank who doesn't ask a question. And he opened his mouth. I was like, absolutely
and
on
he
cue.
gives this long, like, fucking, like,
Stem
just talking
winder.
about himself growing up and like, you know, traveling around the world, and like basically his question was like, he was like, when I grew up, like, people hated America for not being American enough.
Yeah.
And like, how can we get back to like people hating us for the right? Like, I don't know.
It was gibberish.
He was just like, when are we going to be loved again? And not hated?
It was something about how like America used to be the good guy and we fought fascism and
then like
now
he said that, like,
we
when-
are fascism.
Yeah, no, that like he said that like when people hated America when he was growing up, they hated America for not living up to American ideals that they revered and cherished or whatever.
Yeah, I actually left while he was talking. So I don't remember what he said. But then
I was here like for everyone who thinks that, you know, like Chapo, Dude Bro podcast, I was really going to plan to. I wanted to ask a question, and I wanted to ask him point blank, like, does anyone on stage think the CIA can be reformed?
Yeah.
Or if not, how do we begin dismantling it wholesale?
Yeah.
But honestly, I did a progressive stack because I was like, not good.
you did.
You know, like I want the.
I saw you walk
the
away.
Women, and you know, like there's so it's not just like white guys
Yeah.
peppering a panel of not white men
Sure.
with their.
I thought
thoughts
you were
and
about
opinions.
to shit on your doo-doo ass. And
No,
that's
no,
why
no.
you had to leave
I was
the
doing
line.
well. I was doing a progressive stacking of both my, you know, colon and
Sure. You can, they can coexist.
and the speakers. And then, the other people actually did ask questions.
well,
Like,
can we talk about that one?
yeah, okay.
lady?
The highlight of which was this kindly old lady wearing a t-shirt of the full Syrian flag.
Yes.
A jersey.
A jersey of like a jersey that just said Assad
Yeah.
#1 on
Yeah.
the back.
Yeah.
And she just started talking about she said everyone in Syria loves Assad, and just going out, and the room just turns against her.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, if Felix was there, he would have just been like
Escort mission.
Escort mission.
Ma'am, I pledge my sword to you, ma'am.
Yeah.
And the room quickly sort of groaned or turned against her, and Ilhan Omar said no, let her finish.
Yeah.
And then here's my favorite encounter. In the back of the room,
Yep.
one of my blocks that I've collected over the year, fucking Ben Jacobs.
Yeah.
That asshole who used to write for The Guardian. He's famously the guy who got chokeslammed by that dude in Montana.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he blocked me just simply for replying him to say that I think it's funny and good that you were assaulted.
Yeah.
So I don't know
What's
why.
the problem?
What the fuck is the problem?
By the way, when he got choked, I mean, his back hurt. He had only had 3 hours of sleep the night before.
So Ben Jacobs has been shit for a long time. He's had a lot of pissy columns about Chelsea Manning, she's not a hero or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
He was sitting in the back of this fucking panel having to listen about Palestinian solidarity.
Yeah.
Just looking like a little frog.
Yep.
Just a little miserable little frog in the back.
Yeah.
And then of course he took the time to tweet out Ilhan Omar tells crowd not to boo Assad apologist.
Yep. But what was so great was that woman, she read the room immediately, because those old ladies can sometimes be very committed when they want to do their stem winder.
She's clearly used to people getting mad at her for
Yeah.
her love of Assad, because as soon as they started crowding, she was just like, "Well, I'm sorry."
Yeah, but she walked up and she was just kind of this nice lady, and I joked. She said, "May I borrow a cup of sarin, please?"
Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
Please stop doing NATO propaganda
Sorry.
right now.
Yeah, I
She
know.
found herself in a room full of white helmets.
Yeah, yeah. It was a hostile environment for her,
I know,
but she backed
and then
down
she just
immediately.
goes- She backed up immediately, and she just goes, "What can we do?
Yeah,
What
help
can we
us.
do?
Yeah.
Help us!"
Yeah, it was pretty bizarre, but I loved it. It was a
No, I
highlight.
mean, yeah, obviously.
So that was awesome. But
No,
And then it was the big thing.
okay, this is the
equivalent
marquee event.
of that amazing Trump brain orgasm that we witnessed. TiVo, it's better than TV.
Yeah.
You watch it and it's gone. It's that's how watching a thing works. You
Yeah.
watch it and then it's
he
over
thinks
with.
TiVo and television are two different watching things.
TiVo.
Bye-bye,
You get the
TV.
beep, 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 and then you're watching it again.
By the way, we were cracking each other up all weekend, imagining Trump talking about Mad Magazine, the way he goes about Graydon Carter, where he's like, Alfred E. Newman's a very nasty boy. Bye-bye.
Failing Mad Magazine.
Failing Mad Magazine's closing its doors. No more snappy answers to stupid questions. A lot of people said my questions are very smart. There's no lighter side of you anymore. The fold-ins, can't tell what they are. Never could get them to work. Very bad.
So instead of him just having a stroke in front of 5,000 hooting jackals, it was a forum for
candidate
candidates
forum.
sitting down with Marcos and the co-founder of Netroots Nation, who is, I forget her name, but she said that she wrote a book called how to do startups.
Yeah, it was a
that her
startup
thing.
book.
Very techy. I mean, it's Netroots for God's sake.
But before them,
Tech entrepreneurship.
they had a couple speak. That Sherrod Brown
Yeah.
spoke. I thought he was pretty good.
Well, it was
yeah.
weird.
There was-
he listed his professive bona fides, and I was just like, you remember that you decided not to run, right?
Yeah.
Because he was giving them a pitch on basically why he's good.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, all right, none of us are in Ohio, dude. What is this for?
Yeah.
You decided not to run for president. I think he's kind of wishing he had, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, they like him there. He's been a friend of this crowd, but at least he has some kind of labor buy-in.
Yeah, he endorsed Hillary.
He endorsed Hillary, and he doesn't go for Medicare for all, if
Yeah,
I'm not
no,
mistaken.
And there was a Philadelphia city council woman.
She was
who I
pretty
thought
good.
was actually the best speaker at the
Yeah,
entire
I
event.
actually. Hey, this is Chris. I wanted to shout her out specifically. This is New York, Philly City Councilwoman Helen Gim, who was great and had a great speech, and just wanted to say, hey, throw her a follow. I think she's someone to watch. She was wonderful.
She was very impressive, and I believe, and I could be wrong on this, and we'll delete a fact check it if this is false. But I believe she was endorsed by Philadelphia DSA in her insurgent campaign. But at minimum has spoken to them and worked together on things like Fight for 15. And she came out as a community organizer, talking about the seizure and destruction in Philadelphia's Chinatown and the gentrification and so on.
Yeah, I don't know anything about her, so I don't want to like say whether she's good or bad. But she at least had some energy where it was an actual kind of rally.
She had some
vibe.
energy. Like the thing she said, she was talking sense, and like I thought, her best moment was when she said like facing like other like the Philly Democratic politicians who referred to me and like Krasner as like the greatest threat to the Democratic Party, and she was like, "I'm here to tell you like that's 100% true."
Yeah, and she got a great pop for that.
Yeah,
but then it just shows the schizophrenia of this whole fucking operation.
Yep.
That was followed by 4 interviews with 4 candidates, which were just.
There was another. I do want to note this. There was another speaker, I believe it was that day, who I found very impressive too, who was talking about Me Too and saying if you support Me Too, you have to support the abolition of tipping.
Oh, that was the day before.
That was the day before. Oh,
she was really good. Oh yeah, there was one good speaker.
She was exceptional.
And the day before, and I'm afraid I don't recall exactly who she is.
I can't remember her name. Yeah,
but I mean, it was actually another very fiery and like focused and left leaning, if not left wing, fully like call to arms. And as Matt said, though, the audience, it didn't really differentiate. It clearly didn't differentiate between her and fucking
Kristen
Gillibrand.
Yeah.
Like it was this weird feeling where everyone wins and like there was no conflict we were supposed to recognize, and that was odd.
So, all right, it's like the marquee event, the candidate forum. You got Kristen Gillibrand, Julian Castro, Elizabeth Warren, and Jay Inslee.
Yeah,
coming up the rear.
Jay. Sherman. Okay, before we get into each of the candidates thing, I think we should make note that Marcos and the co-host had this like incredibly just like D-list Morning Joe style rapport and like sort of bands that they were.
It was one of those local TV where it's like, oh, and we have a monkey who can cook, an omelet in 5 minutes, and it's just like the banter was.
Like they cut back and they're just like, that's great.
Yeah. It was very uncomfortable, and it stuck out like badly.
Okay, so the way they had set up this forum is that Marcos would ask questions like selected from the Daily Coast community. And then they would bring out local activists on stage to ask each of the candidates a question, usually related to the like activist work that they do. So, okay, Gillibrand leads us off. Gillibrand, I thought was like definitely the most entertaining because of she was like the most weirdly inauthentic and odd,
empty.
Like the first thing she did is that she was just like, "Do you mind if I stand up?"
Yep.
And she answered every question like sort of pacing around the stage, doing this like politician, like walking around instead of just sitting in the chair.
Yep.
Very odd.
No one else did that.
But a great moment came when they brought out the first like activist question, and it was a man and wife and their infant child. And as soon as Gillibrand sees that baby, she just looks like the Terminator. She just like she just zeroes in on the baby. She's like, "Give me that child.
I need your clothes, your boots, not a pacifier."
Not since Greg Stilson as a politician. That was so enthusiastically.
So she just sprints over, grab that baby.
Yeah.
And the funniest fucking thing is that the question was about family separation on the border.
She's pulling the kid away from the
separating
couple.
this baby from his parents.
Just horrible optics.
That's like literally, you could just take that moment word from word and put it into a Veep episode.
Yeah.
It's like the perfect Veep.
Oh, it was real Veep energy.
It was
when she-
extremely
hardcore
Selena
VP.
Myers.
I'd say
and
Gillibrand
vibes.
might be the most VP candidate running right now.
I mean, what is she at, like 0.5%? Like,
And she's clearly trying to go like double down on being super progressive. She's out there talking about reparations and abolishing ICE and all this shit, and it's like, but and then she's also, and I think her new value add is like sounding very empathetic. So because she had what she claimed, she literally even called it herself a viral moment, where apparently she had this Q&A in Youngstown, Ohio, and like this young, this young white mother with a kid who's like has struggled with employment, said like, "What is white privilege? I don't feel privileged. I'm struggling with this community drug effect." And she gave this answer where she's like, whatever your problems are, you don't suffer. Your kid isn't going to get killed by the police. Blah blah blah. And it kind of went viral, I guess. Like I saw it on Twitter at least a few times. People saying this is a good answer, and she just did it again. She repeated the thing.
She played the hit,
and she also had her voice crack with emotion
she was
during it.
very stagey.
It's like
crying.
it just felt it was super. It was politician and like real hardcore. Just robot hours on that shit. And not to mention the fact that it's a fucking shitty ass goddamn answer anyway. Because like this woman's like, I mean, it's basically just you're supposed to feel bad for other people. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But once again, that is a privilege of relatively well-off people to orient their politics around others. If you're actually, suffering, if you're going to think politics is going to help you, it has to be about helping you. And
but of course, that kind of answer would again go over great in that room.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And they loved it.
And they did.
I wrote down one thing that this was by far, I think, the best line of the candidate forum. I forget what the question was about, but I just had to write this down because it stuck out in my head. Gillibrand said, "Every child should have access to STEM."
Yes, I remember that. I think we all laughed like audibly at that. Yeah. That was a tough one.
Do not grow accustomed to the STEM. You will resent its absence when I take away the TI 1000 calculator, so you can no longer spell boobs.
I love the idea. It's like every kid in America, you get a STEM.
You get a STEM. You get a STEM.
Yeah.
And then after
so after that was Castro. And here was the best part of Castro. They brought out another activist to come out there to ask a question. They were also carrying a very small infant. And then Castro, of course, was sitting down, as one should, and
And nobody said anything, but there was just a moment because everyone kind of looked around because they're like, "Oh, there's a baby," and it's like, "Are we established a pattern?"
They're like,
They just kind of look at it like,
they're like, Julian, you want that baby? And then I don't think he was
I doubt he even heard it because he was probably back there doing his other shit. So he probably didn't even hear it.
I don't know if this was conscious, but in the room, it went over great because he just goes, right after Gillibrand had made a big thing about cooing over this baby, grabbing it, putting it over her shoulder, Castro just goes, "Look, I'm not going to do the typical politician thing of just hugging a baby."
And the room
and the room was like,
to diss.
"Oh, snap!
Fatality,
Roasted."
That was kind of the only thing of interest. In that.
I forgot everything else he said.
And then it was Warren who was the headline.
We've mentioned this before, but the Netroots Nation crowd could not have been. This was Warren country.
This is her base.
This is her base.
Amber always says that she doesn't have a real base, and I don't know. I'm not sure if that's true or not. But if she does, I don't think anyone would argue that these people constitute it.
They were jazzed.
Yeah. Well, because Netroots Nation is part of what made Liz Warren and encouraged her to run in the first place in 2012, and was so focused on the
Finance Protection.
Consumer Finance Protection Board.
Warren. Again, I don't know if you remember any of her specific answers. I remember basically thinking it evenly divided between things that were good and sensible and the correct thing to say and pablum.
Yep.
And Matt, you brought this up, and I want to talk about it. Again, at least it relates to Warren and what's really the thing that people have latched onto and has granted her increasing purchase in this race. Is this idea of her plans?
Yes, she's got plans, folks.
She's got plans. She's a Cylon, basically. And you made the point that that is so. The idea about the candidate who's done all the homework, has everything figured out, is so perfectly pitched to that audience.
Yes.
Of people, but it's also sort of demobilizing for an electorate in a certain extent.
Yeah.
Just
that kind of thing only appeals to people who have succeeded in the meritocratic treadmill, in the hamster wheel of getting into a good school and getting a good degree, getting good grades and getting being a success. People who've made that a successful move, they value it. Even if they believe themselves to be progressive, they value that meritocracy. They value people based on their ability to succeed like that as well. They have actual contempt, honestly, for poor people, because even if they mouth things about systemic issues for poor people, they also blame people for failing, which is why they sublimate all of their contempt for the poor people on poor whites, because they can say, I don't hate every poor person because poor minorities have too many structural racism issues. That's why they can't succeed. But poor whites with white privilege, you have no excuse.
Right.
You're just a fucking loser. And you're racist to boot, fuck you.
Yeah.
And if you haven't succeeded on the meritocratic treadmill, then this means nothing to you.
Right.
Oh, look how detailed my plans are. I mean, and even on a tactical sense, it's meaningless because it doesn't get anything passed, especially since the fucking president, by the way, doesn't write bills. The president doesn't actually write legislation. That is the prerogative of fucking Congress. You can propose an idea.
In practice.
No, no, it doesn't.
No,
they
in
have the people
practice.
writing those
No,
bills
no.
are not going to be in the White House. They're going to be on the Hill.
Releases a budget and its allies in Congress introduce it, and that becomes what the
Yeah, but it
root of
doesn't pass.
legislation.
They don't pass
I mean,
budgets.
it's a bargaining position,
Right,
It's
but
where it
it's-
begins.
but I'm saying
there's
is
a it's a holistic
what I am saying
process.
is that the actual meat gets put on the bone and on the Hill. So this is all beside the point, and it doesn't contribute to whether it gets passed, because the fact that nobody really wanted to confront is that you can't get much passed given the structural impediments. And if you have if you're governing and you're pitching like Warren to the professional media class, to these people who have gotten good grades their whole life, you are. I think we could see that. I think that even polling bears us out. You are less likely to engage more marginal people who are actually suffering more in the economy, people who haven't won in the economic crapshoot, and are less likely to vote as a result of that. There's a poll that came out while we were at Netroots saying that Bernie's base is poorer, more diverse, by the way, racially, and less likely to vote, less invested in politics.
lower educational attainment as well.
And Warren's is highly educated, whiter, and more successful and much more politically engaged. Now, if your candidate is someone who engages those people, you're going to lose a significant chunk of those less engaged voters. And the thing is, there's no path to any kind of success in traditional politics. There's no path to the critical change we need that does not involve a vast increasing in the electorate. Like, the only way to overcome these institutional obstacles we have now, from gerrymandering to the Senate itself to the courts, is by overwhelming them with people. That's the only solution within electoralism that is there. The electorate, as it has taken for granted by both parties, with roughly even share and then a little sliver of moderates who go back and forth, that will never change anything. It's by definition can't. So that
Rolling down the street, registered moderates.
A Warren nominee kind of guarantees that you'll probably win. You know, Trump is spectacularly unpopular. I mean, she could lose to him. I wouldn't rule it out, especially if the economy stays relatively strong. But she could also beat him. But she's going to beat him narrowly, and it's going to be the same thing as like second-term Obama, where it's just gridlock and failure, and that will lead then to Tom Cotton or somebody else coming in when everyone gets disillusioned. A Bernie candidacy could, I'm not guaranteeing it could, but it's the only possibility that could actually enlarge the electorate significant, because if Bernie's on the ticket, then those people are going to vote. And those PMC people who don't like Bernie because of bros or whatever the fuck, they're still going to vote for him because they vote every fucking time and they are committed to the Democratic Party.
But that doesn't necessarily follow, because are you confident that Warren can't expand the electorate?
I don't think, nothing she has shown me so far indicates to me that there's anything in her style of campaigning, in her rhetoric, in her policies that will engage those voters, especially since they have seen Bernie and he's been the one that they identify with breaking through the miasma, right? Because the reason people people with left-wing opinions with lower education attainment and lower income don't vote is because they have correctly decided that voting doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And Bernie cuts through that with his class first appeal. Warren is, at the end of the day, with all the plan shit, she's making the same technocratic appeals to fidgeting with stuff. Even if you can argue, oh no, this is all going to be radically changing, it's still in the pitch through the technocratic lens that these people check out when they hear, because it's everything they've always fucking heard before. And watching them go crazy for Warren, these people who act like they want to change things, really want a president who, when they get in there, is going to be able to reverse all the damage that's being done and actually act on stuff like fucking climate change and rampant inequality and everything. And they're setting themselves up for a failure. And it's because at the end of the day, not only is Warren less compelling as a campaigner, less able, has shown at least till now, less able to get these voters on her side. She just is less compelling in every sense. The only reason these people like her is because of two specific things. One is that she passes a very shallow identitarian test, because she's a woman. We need a female president. And the other is that meritocratic credentialism that is part and parcel with the worldview.
Those aren't the only reasons.
Those are the main ones. What else is the thing that differentiates her from Bernie then?
Because during the Obama years, she was probably within the Democratic caucus the most outspoken critic of the president, of his administration. And as well, one of the big things that I think most people remember about Liz Warren, and especially why this crowd loves her, is when these bankers were hauled in front of Congress and she just roasted the shit out of them to their faces.
So what? Who gives a shit about a fucking roast? And
well, I mean, you're talking about style. You brought up style,
right? But I'm saying that style. I think we can.
That's
see.
Also why people like Bernie.
No, he didn't roast it. His thing was like
he goes after them. That's his style.
He goes
That's
after them in like filibusters and stuff. He didn't like roast people at the dais. Roasting people on the dais of the Senate committee. That's like the Joe Welch thing. That's the classic liberal thing of like a Mr. Smith moment.
Yeah,
and I don't believe that people outside of that milieu remember any of that stuff. But I just want to say one more thing about this, and this is what really made me despondent about that entire fucking encounter, is that this primary, and if it does really come down to as Virgil thinks, like an establishment candidate, Biden, or more likely according to Virgil Harris, and then Bernie and Warren, is that if Warren wins, honestly, or Bernie wins, is going to tell us whether what we're seeing really is the emergence of like a new working class movement that people have been talking about, or honestly, if this has all been a fucking mirage the entire time, and all we're really seeing is a confluence of professional class guilt, guilty professional class people wanting to launder their sense of being implicated in this grotesque gilded age exploitation machine. And then capitalism's instinctive search for a more inclusive logic for its cultural hegemony, which is like, we need to broaden the base of who counts, who can make it in this country, who can be, who can go up through the ladder. And if that's the case, I think if Warren gets the nomination, I think that shows that, we kind of over fucking stated what was actually happening here.
That was the Warren thing.
That was the Warren. But
here's like just the last thing on the candidate forum that I'll say, and then I'll give my like overarching feeling about watching it. I don't know how they decided the order of this thing, but holy shit, did they dog Jay Inslee?
So mean.
They had to like the idea that Jay Inslee followed Warren in that crowd was ludicrous. They were like, okay, Elizabeth Warren, huge standing ovation, whole room practically on their feet, and they're like, please welcome Governor Jay Inslee. And at that point, we tried to get a Jay chant going. We tried to get a wave going for Jay. Yeah. But it was like,
can I get some Jays?
He gets on stage and he's like, can
I get some rare Jays?
He gets on stage and he's like, Trump is a coward and a racist, and I won't be afraid to say that. As like everyone is streaming to the exits.
Yeah.
Like everybody was just like streaming out of that room as he was just trying to get something going there.
Yeah.
So Jay Inslee, sorry, dog. Like Daily Coast really fucked you over by having you follow that heater by Warren.
And you have to think it was intentional in some sense, because you could still have. I mean, they would have waited for her. It's not like there was some time limit or whatever where Warren could have been the last one. And they just chose not to do that and ensure that everyone left.
They must have known that like she was the by far and away
of course.
the biggest name at that entire event.
So, and if you know that, you probably put them at the end so that everyone else gets their. And not that I give a shit about Jay Inslee, but you.
I feel bad for him, man.
I
did in that moment. The nervous energy of a sober alcoholic.
Yeah,
he really did.
And he was talking about his accomplishments in Washington State, mandating universal happy hour, 5 p.m., 9 p.m., gender equality, ladies' nights and men's nights. And I don't know. He's a governor, rolls up his sleeves and gets things done.
Yeah. That's the other thing that left me kind of hollow afterwards is that the signature issue is climate change, and presumably he's not really running for president. He's running to be maybe EPA chief or something in the next presidential administration, which go for it. Do as thou wilt is clearly the rule, the whole of the law nowadays. But the contrast between his message and the urgency of it, and his delivery and his prescriptions was so huge that you just think like, I mean, how does he go through the day thinking like, if you've really reckoned with where we are, and then this is all you can like muster in your attempt to get across to the American people what's happening.
Well,
He
I mean, like, to
understand-
your point though, like about like the prescriptions, and like you were saying, like that was like the big sort of fissure throughout this entire thing is the identification of these problems that we're all suffering from, and the just sort of letting the air out of the balloon as soon as they start talking about what to do or what is to be done, as someone famously asked. What struck me watching the candidate forum and seeing, what I thought were very impressive activists who asked very good, pointed questions about issues about, the housing crisis that Philadelphia and almost every other major city in America or even globally is experiencing, the surveillance and over-policing of poor and minority communities, the the dehumanization of economic migrants and refugees along the border, the gutting out of huge employers by vulture capitalist hedge funds, inequality, global warming, like all of these things, like all the problems are identified, and the candidates, I would say, gave better answers or were trained to give things that sounded better probably than they ever have before. I think largely due to one Bernard Sanders,
Who was never mentioned.
Who was never mentioned even once. But like they Medicare for all, or like they're making, again, like what
They're all speaking his language.
They're all speaking about, we need a single payer system, and then of course they fudge on the details. But what struck me was that they were all identifying each of these problems and proposing solutions that were by turns, like I said, good or pablum in my opinion. But what never connected and what was never mentioned is that like all of these problems that we're facing as a society and like the solutions that we're using to confront them all stem from the same thing. These are all manifestations of the economic and political system we live under, which is called capitalism.
That a word I did not hear one time from anyone.
And then like all of these things are maladies of the same illness. And that like the counter or solution to that, the actual solution is to counter the entire system.
Right.
And the word for that is socialism.
Indeed.
So far, Sanders is the only one who has, broached that or like made a full-throated pitch for a class politics that is rooted in class interest and class conflict. Yeah. And the rest of the candidates, like I said, at times they sounded good and they even got me clapping about a lot of the things they said. But ultimately, I just thought it was missing this just giant element of like, you're always just going to be chasing solutions to problems that are going to keep happening until you.
Yeah, it's a finger in the dike.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we got all these discrete answers to all these questions.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a month ago, Bernie Sanders did a speech about like why I'm a democratic socialist. And I saw a lot of people in the mainstream of the party who are not really trying to be overtly anti-Sanders, but kind of like, yeah, I don't really get why he did that speech at all. And, seeing this, and to your point, Will, it makes a lot of sense why he did that, even if it felt like kind of, I don't know, random at the time, to just like come out and be like, look, here's my total worldview of what the problem with the system is. And that is the capital T, capital D, the difference is that he is going out there and saying that I have a totalizing worldview about what is the problem is that is actually different from every other thing that we see on that stage.
And the other thing that's different is the strategy, because he is the only candidate who has walked picket lines during this campaign, and he's going to take a bunch of people across the border to Canada to buy a bunch of cheap medicine. And as I said, the real contrast is while these people were doing the speeches in front of the wonks and the $175 activists in the media at Netroots, he waited till the day after. And he is now at a protest. He was at a protest today in Philadelphia
for the shutdown of Hahnemann Hospital, which is a hospital last resort. It serves tens of thousands of people, most of them indigent. Often they don't have access to any health services other than an emergency room. The hospital a few years ago was purchased by an investment banker who literally bought it so he could close it and sell the land, which is valuable space for luxury development.
It is a fucking 80s movie. It's like Bernie's going to go out there and be like, I am ready to breakdance as long as it takes to save the rec center. Put the cardboard down. I will both pop and lock.
And that's Bernie and Helen Gim, who we talked about, who did speak to this crowd, and that that kind of shows you the kind of the bleeding left edge here of what's possible in Netroots Nation. And to that point, something that I heard rather frequently, not just at Netroots Nation, but is well from other people that we've interacted with, even interviewed on this show, who are not themselves socialists, would say no if you ask them the question, are you socialist? One thing you hear is, we're talking about the same thing. You just call it socialism. We actually mean the same thing. And the thing is, that's a lie. That's utterly, utterly false. They have an absolutely different analytical framework, an absolutely different understanding of society and the fight for resources in it. And you shouldn't allow people to get away with that.
What do you think, guys?
Well, there is one last thing. We did. Now, I don't want you to think we went to Philadelphia just to do some goofs and gags. Bad dog.
Wait, did she get the bun?
Yeah.
No, wait, it's
she
here.
just pulled the bun off the Whopper.
Fucking tried to steal my Whopper.
Oh, Will's cat tried to eat a Whopper here.
That's Catherine's cat.
Oh, that's
like
Catherine's.
this all the time.
oh boy, we have fun here, don't we? No, we actually did go there to do something, and that thing was defeat fascism.
Oh my god!
Intergalactic.
Speaking of cats,
Yeah, that was really good timing.
I think this ties us up pretty well. So when we went to Main Street on the first day, the town hall square,
zone.
the town zone.
town zone, we went to like the town level to buy potions and heal. The one vendor that caught my eye was the gaming vendor who was selling resistance-themed board games. And of course, I bought one. And this was the game is called Space Cats Fight Fascism. And I will read you the story now. It's the year 3 million, and the and the animals of Earth's past.
3 million. In the year 3 million. None of our fucking children fans will get that.
And the animals of Earth's past now inhabit the planets of the galaxy in advanced societies.
Eating the Whopper. Why do you want a Whopper? You're a fucking cat.
She's fighting fascism.
She thinks these people.
And even though the human species has long since been forgotten, the darkest parts of their history have not. A rising wave of fascism is sweeping across the galaxy, threatening to throw the interspecies galactic alliance under autocratic rule.
Oh, no.
To help grow its power, the regime known as the Rat Pack has convinced the powers that be that all cats must be tightly controlled or forced into feline exile. But everyone knows cats don't like to be collared and they don't like to be caged. And so the feline rebellion begins. Together, a band of space cat rebels must stop the fascist forces from seizing power while building a new galaxy where all species are free.
Now, the first thing I clocked about this game is that in its, fighting fascism thing, it is exactly reversed Art Spiegelman's Mouse.
Yep.
In that they have made the rodents the ones who are
It doesn't make
doing-
That's
sense.
called day turning. And so it's a cooperative game. You have cards laid out that are the planets. We each play a character who's like a badass Antifa cat. More like a badass hashtag resistance cat. And, they all have home planets such as Litterbox, Water Dish, Hairball. What was that one? Frostnip. That was a delightful one. And basically, there's fascism tokens on the board, and you want to remove the fascism tokens. And
you
add
liberate
resistance
planets.
tokens. Yeah, and you get 4 resistance tokens.
And you
liberate
draw
planets.
like resist cards, which give you abilities to teleport to a planet +1 liberation point.
Right.
And then there's like a news cards that you pull.
No, they're galactic news cards, which increase the fascism track. And once a fascism track reaches a certain point, you lose the game.
It's basically like community chess and Monopoly, except they're all bad.
And you also take scratches, and that represents your injuries from fighting the rats, fighting fascism. And ultimately, we played the game, and we almost lost. We were cocky at first. We liberated a couple planets. We're like, oh, this is easy, we'll get it. But then the fascists fought back, as they do. It's a good lesson. And then Chris played
Operation Ratio.
And it's a good lesson, I think. And Chris actually played the winning move, liberated the 4th planet, and we won the game. We put fascism away. I'm going to give this game for design incredibly well. Story immersive. I'm excited for the series of science fiction books based on this property. Maybe honestly, movie rights.
You just liked it because you could be a little kitty.
Yeah, I mean that too. That's what everyone wants to be. Gonna give it a 3.5 out of 4 stars.
There you go. So if you're, in on the lookout for a
What's it called
cooperative-
again? What's that name?
Space Cats
Fight Fascism.
Space Cats Fight Fascism. So there you go. I hope you space cats out there in podcast land will be fighting fascism as well. All right. Real quick. We, as Virgil alluded to at the beginning, we did get to meet Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
Yeah.
And all I'll say about that is that, would you believe it? She's actually very cool.
She was very cool.
Bad cat! God damn it! Jesus Christ! Oh wait, we have plugs. Really quick, in Providence, Rhode Island, next month at Necronomicon, we will be playing Call of Cthulhu live. Tickets will be available at the link in the description, and also at the end of this month, at the Traverse City Film Festival in Traverse City, Michigan. Chapo Trap House, we're doing a little show, and we are also going to do a live roast of the second Democratic debate. Tickets, one of those is free, and the other you have to pay for. But we're not going to tell you which. And the links will be in the description of this, and we might do a screening. That's up in the air.
Well, folks, that is the state of your Netroots Nation. You've got to stop now before the cat pilfers any more space fascism from my coffee table. So until next time, guys, once again, Brendan James, lovely to have you back in the trap,
Yeah.
brother.
Thanks for having me tag along and fill